Today, Pat Nowak, the author of the ABCs of Widowhood, joins us live in the studio, and unfortunately, you know the answers to that all too well.
You know, I do, but really no one ever knows because each death is different. And I know Terry's a little bit younger than I was, so she's going to, of course, have young children to raise. So her coping skills are going to have to take a little bit more than mine did, actually.
How long had you been married, and what happened to your husband?
My husband was walking across the street and killed instantly by an uninsured motorist. And then, of course, 18 days later, we faced a double whammy when my house burned down.
Oh, my gosh.
So we had to cope with not only losing a house, but also losing a husband. And my children were in college, so we had a lot of financial details that we had to work out. And unfortunately, most women aren't prepared for financial trauma.
But how do you deal with it when you're at that moment? How do you raise up and have the strength, not just for a burning house, but to deal with the loss of your husband? What's the key?
You know what, after the death, you actually go into like a mental state that you're there, but you're really not there. You're in a fog, and you get through the, the funeral services. You actually meet people, and you smile, and you greet people, and you talk, and then after the death and after the funeral services, it's like, what now? Finally, the realization sits in that you're alone. You're the sole purpose for your children to rely on. You're the person that has to go out and get financial things done. You're the person that has to emotionally get up every morning. And even though you're wiping away those tears, the world still expects you to come to the door.
And while you see so many people when the tragedy happens and at the funeral, so many of my girlfriends who have lost their husbands said to me, suddenly, within a few weeks after the funeral, nobody's calling anymore. Now, in the ABCs of Widowhood, you've written this so beautifully because it really is the ABCs. You can pick any letter, like if I were to pick F, and you come up with something that, in F, you actually have flirting. What do you mean by that?
Oh my gosh, after a few years, you're going to want to date. And you have to learn, you have to relearn to date. You have to come up with the new flirting techniques and how to meet a guy. And, that's a whole novel unto itself because it's so funny.
Right. And then you have, under E, you have embarrassing.
Sometimes it's embarrassing to be a widow. When you first introduce yourself as a widow, people